Now we're going to move to my prospective guest on the programme, and she is the woman famous for first theorising the male gaze. That, of course, the act of depicting women in cinema, in literature as well, from just a masculine heterosexual perspective. The male gaze also then representing women as sexual objects. Well, the concept was first written about by the British feminist film theorist Laura Mulvey in an essay that she wrote right back in 1975. Since then, she's continued her work as a feminist in her own films as well, and working to teach in a series of prestigious universities and colleges. Currently Professor Emerita at Birkbank College, University of London. This week her work is being honoured at the festival Satellite Perspective in Saint-Denis, just north of Paris, and she joins us now on the programme. Thanks very much for talking to us on the programme today. I mean, you've obviously been talking about this subject for years. I can't believe that this theory was first outlined back in 1975. I mean, it's incredible that you wrote this so long ago, and 50 years later it's still having such resonance.
I absolutely agree with you. It's amazing, but it's, of course, very delightful for me. I'm very gratified. I have to disagree perhaps with just one point that you made. My ideas about the gaze in my article of 1975 was very specifically about the cinema. I wouldn't extend it necessarily to the other arts, but not then. But nowadays, the phrase has captured the popular imagination, and I do think it's found its place in other areas of the arts. But my original thought was about cinema, about Hollywood cinema, and about the industrialization of the male gaze.
I mean, I know you've put it all down in an entire book, so this is probably an impossible question, but sum it up for us, if you can, in your own words, in a minute.
Yes, the idea partly is based on the fact that the male protagonist, the very beautiful male star, has to be protected from being the object of the gaze. That would risk the taboo of homosexuality and the desiring gaze of the male spectator at the male figure on the screen. So in a sense, the woman takes an extra important part, and as a compensation, the male protagonist becomes a very active figure. He dominates the story, he carries the action forward, he's able to direct the line of the narrative.
And why is that? Is that because of the way films were made?
Yes, and that kind of ideological principle, as it were, is then inscribed into the way in which films are made. And so the arrival of the woman on the screen has to have a certain kind of spectacular impact. And very often she also doubles up with the part of a, say, a singer. If you think, for instance, of a film like Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall, when Lauren Bacall is actually a singer, and there are wonderful scenes where she stands by the piano in Casablanca and sings. This, in a sense, concentrates the male gaze very much on the female figure.
And you tried to do something about it yourself, haven't you, as well? I mean, you're very much a filmmaker yourself. We're going to see a few images from your film Riddles of the Sphinx, where the women take the main parts. Those are the people that you're kind of focused on.
Yes, and also my point really in my original essay was that there can be an alternative cinema. There are alternative cinemas. There have always been alternative cinemas. And the cinema itself is a very complex medium. And there's no need for it to be tied to a specific and particular language of film. It can be freed. The cinema can be freed for poetry, or even, as we argued in our films, which I made in collaboration with Peter Wallen, film can be freed for theory, for ideas, what nowadays perhaps we would call essay film. So it wasn't only a gesture towards women in film, it was also a gesture towards liberating the cinema itself to invent itself for something new and different.
I'm sure you would agree that since you wrote that, a lot has changed. I mean, there are, for a start, an awful lot more women working in film, but there are still those films, aren't there, where what you're talking about still, to me anyway, seems to be very much present, and perhaps from that point of view, not so much has changed.
I think it cuts both ways. It's enormously important that more women are making films nowadays. For instance, in 1972, I organized one of the very first retrospectives of films made by women at the Edinburgh Film Festival. In those days, you could really count up the women who'd made films on the fingers of a couple of hands. And recently, the number of women who've come into film has increased enormously. And we can actually see much more of, not, I would say, so much a woman's gaze or a feminist aesthetic on the screen, but women-inflected stories, the kinds of experiences and the kinds of sensitivities, sensibilities that are not necessarily which are specific to women, but would have just not been of any interest to the male mind or the male imagination.
Yeah, that was going to be my last question to you. I mean, do you think what you said
Yes.
has actually changed the way men make films as well? Or is it just that the women making the films are taking it on board?
I'm not quite sure about that. Let's say, I hope so.
That's one way of putting it, isn't it? Great to have you with us on the programme today. Thank you very much for joining us. Laura Mulvey, Professor Emerita at Birkbeck College, University of London, and her book that she's talking about there with the male gaze. Thanks very much for joining us on the programme today. Good to have you with us.